Welcome back to Everyday Garage, guys, and we are back on the GMC 302. If you have not seen the first video on that, I'll put a link right here. Stop now, go check that out. Explain how we got here, how we got to the short block, all the stuff I went through to make this happen. It'll make a lot more sense, basically. But in this video, guys, we are gonna get this bad boy to pop off and finally run. For the first time ever, I've never heard this engine run, and with this full rebuild, with all the stuff on it, I am super excited. I will not release this video, it will not hit YouTube until this bad boy runs. But before we do that, we got a lot of little things, like I said, and we have to put this thing in paint. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. All right, guys, I've actually kind of went ahead and, plugged all the holes, all our oil lines, coolant stuff, that's all plugged off. I went ahead and plugged off this oil line too, so we're good to go. We just kind of have to stuff some paper or something in these areas to make sure they don't get a bunch of paint on them, and then we should be good to go. So a little bit of taping, a little bit of stuff, and that block's ready. And this is all the little stuff I was talking about. We have our filler neck, our thermostat housing, our bracket for AC, which this truck will have AC. Pretty much my fiance says, if you really want me in the truck at any point, you're gonna need to have AC in that thing. So that's the compromise. We have our 4-barrel intake from Clifford. We'll be going over that later. Our Nixon manifold headers, super excited, and our 3/8 pulley for the water pump. So we just got to get all that in paint, guys, get it started. I'm super excited to show you guys the color. Now let's go to get everything taped off. I'm not going to bore you with that because nobody wants to see someone taping some stuff up. I'll bring you back when we're ready to lay some paint. And there we have it, guys, all taped off. I saved you guys a ton of time because that took me forever. The exhaust and intake is taped off. This is what I did for the lifters. I went ahead and just put some plastic with some tape. The valve cover will cover everything, and I made sure that I kind of hit that line where the valve cover is going to be. We still need to block off the water pump a little bit, but that's good to go. Everything has been degreased. This is what I did for the lifters, guys. Just ran some tape across, no big deal. Stuffed paper in all the holes and miscellaneous stuff. Went ahead and just dropped the dipstick in because it's bare metal, needs to be painted anyways. And this is what I did for the spark plugs, guys. I forgot that I needed to block that off. And I just didn't want to put paper in there because it could just fall right into the cylinder. So my air fittings, it's all 1/4" MPT, which I didn't know, but that worked out perfectly. And that's what I did for all of them. I even have the connector part on this one. Basically, you do what you got to do, you know what I mean? So we are ready to go. Last thing I need to do is go ahead and Scotch-Brite it, lay some wax and grease remover, and we will get this thing in paint. Now with that block all cleaned up, ready to go, and a bunch of the other little accessories I'll show you later, we need to paint. Now, I've shown this multiple times on the channel, but only like 4 of you watch, so we'll kind of go over it real quick. I'm using my SPI epoxy. I'm going to go ahead and use my DeBliss finish line. I've got a 1.4 tip in here, and then I use Harbor Freight's Spectrum paint system, which is basically 3M's first generation of their PPS system, and they lost the patent, so they have this one. So a lot of my stuff's from Harbor Freight because it's, cheap. Now the epoxy is 1:1. Now you can use epoxy on an engine. I know some people aren't sure if you can or can't. This one is good up to 350 degrees. If my engine block is at 350 degrees, I've got issues. Granted, it's not good around the exhaust, but it's fine everywhere else. A lot of people have used it with no big deal. So to mix it up, I just have a little Tupperware thing. Don't tell my fiance I borrowed that. And a little mixing cup. Now the PPS system, or the Harbor Freight one, doesn't go down to a 1:1 mix up. The epoxy needs a 1:1. So I have to mix it up in a separate one. With that, or you could just measure it all out, but I'm not doing that. So it's actually the middle of a rainstorm right now. Pretty much California's been drenched for the last 3 months. Finding a day that's not raining is kind of a pain, and then finding a day where I'm off and I can do this and it's not raining is even more. So we're just, gonna try our best. A little bit of rain never hurt, right? All this fancy paint and cleaning just to have it rained on. All right, guys, I'm gonna slam this on the gun and let's go lay some paint. Well, we have a break in the rain. Let's roll it out here and get it. And not have the engine roll away. Oh, this is risky. There it is. And if you guys are just joining the channel, you know that I don't actually have any yard or, anything, so. Well, it's the next day, guys. As you saw, it got complicated. Rain started coming down. I had to pull the engine in. It got a little bit of water on it. I figured that might happen. We went ahead and got the accessories kind of painted up. I forgot this one. That's why it's in a different primer. So that's done. The engine came out good, though, despite, you know, a little bit of rain. Pretty happy with the prime on it. Now we just need to come through and put a little bit of color. Also, you saw me fiddling with my my intake here. I just wanted to get it in some primer, but I went ahead and already painted it. So basically, this is just all I used. A rattle can, and it's cast aluminum. I didn't want to change the color. I wanted to keep it that cast aluminum look, but I just wanted to protect it a little bit. Now, the upside to epoxy is that even though it sat overnight, I don't have to sand it, I don't have to do anything. You can go ahead and just shoot your top coat right over it. I think you have like a 3-day window to just go ahead and top coat it. So I think there's a little bit of sunshine out there. Let's go ahead and see what we have right now, guys. There we go. A little bit of sun going on out there. So while I have a little bit of sun before it's supposed to rain later today, let's go ahead and get all this out here and go ahead and get this sprayed up and finally in color. So the original color on that engine was GMC ran a red paint, and I hate red. I don't know what it is. I don't like red cars, red engines. It's just not my thing. But I kind of wanted to keep true to it. I didn't want to go like a Ford blue or anything else like a Chevy orange. I didn't want to do any of that. So I kind of researched and saw what GMC colors might be out there, and I went with this. This here is a Detroit Diesel Alpine Green. So a lot of you guys are familiar with it. It's a very popular color. It's not like it's something completely off the wall, but I'm really happy for this Detroit Diesel Green. I think it's gonna look awesome. Also, I'm a big green fan. Plus, it'll, with a black engine bay like I planned, it'll pop with the green. I think with the black accessories, it's gonna look awesome, guys. And I'll bring you in. That's kind of the color right there. It's already been mixed up. We'll go ahead and get in here. Plus, guys, I have some hardener. So I picked up an acrylic enamel activator. I'm going to do a 4-to-1 mix. It's kind of aggressive, but we'll go with that. And then I bought a urethane reducer just in case. Well, I actually already had all this, but it's going to work out good. Now, like I said, a 4-to-1. So I kind of have this concoction kind of set up here so I can measure it out. And that's what we're kind of going for. Oh man, guys, that sucked. I just turned the camera off and it just became fail after fail. First, I dumped the entire first contents of that jar everywhere. And then I came over here and I tried to spray and I found, you know, this. Yeah. This is the one that I didn't, yeah, see? Yeah, there you go. This is completely hardened. So basically, my hardener works really well. Good to know its quality. Way over hardened. So I did a 4-to-1 mix. I did look it up, and 8-to-1 was kind of recommended, but I thought a typical 4-to-1 should be pretty solid. No, it instantly hardened. So I ruined that entire can of paint. And you know what's funny is I would have probably found that out with the first and been able to just way down, reduce the hardener for the second, but this is all that I have left now. And it's not enough to do the motor because I dropped the first batch. So a whole lot of suck is going on. I tell you what, man, it's just on par. Oh, man. That just goes to show, you know, my novice, my incompetence always just cost me money. That was a $50 can of paint. Now I have to run out and find it. So there is no way to get Detroit Diesel Green in like a sprayable acrylic enamel anywhere local within a decent time period. Okay, I can get it here in a couple days, but I simply don't have that kind of time. So just bust out some rattle cans. O'Reilly has some Detroit Diesel Green and some rattle cans. I'm gonna go pick it up, and that's just what's gonna happen. It's just gonna be what it is, guys. Let me run out, let me clean up. I gotta clean the guns. I gotta clean this giant mess up. I have to, you know, yeah. Well, I'm back, and I was actually able to pick up some Detroit Diesel Green duple color, so we'll go ahead and use this. Not what I wanted, but it's gonna happen. But of course, it is now raining. Looks like a light sprinkle, but still not something you want to be painting in. Par for the course with me. I'm not even worried about it. Don't even care. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna stick it right here, let the breeze kind of take it, and we're just gonna paint it right here. The upside to not actually using the HVLP and going rattle can is the fact that I don't really have to worry about overspray. So let's just get this sprayed right here and get it done. Perseverance is going to be key in this one. Okay guys, while we let the engine and all those other parts dry and hopefully turn out well, we'll see. I need to go ahead and hit the headers or exhaust manifold. These are called cast iron headers is what they're going for. Basically, it's just a high flow manifold, dual manifold kind of situation, similar to like ram horns on a short block. These are called Nixon headers. They were originally made by Nixon back in the day. Nixon no longer makes this, and I'm not even sure if they're still around. But a hot rodder pretty much went into business for himself, and he sent this out to be, you know, molded, casted, and he does about 20 sets at a time and sells them out to guys still trying to put these on their old hot rods. So it's actually really cool. These aren't originals, they're just reproductions, but should be the same kind of high flow dual exhaust manifold that we're looking for. So it's definitely going to be a nice little upgrade to what we had on there, which was like a terrible log style manifold that breathed nothing. So also what's really cool is because these are reproduction, they come with a more modern bolt pattern. Well, a Chevy, like a small block Chevy bolt pattern. So we'll be able to find enough exhaust collectors and stuff like that to bolt right up without having to kind of try to modify something to fit. So I'm excited to have these guys, and it's pretty cool to go with this old hot rod engine, and you know, just kind of one of those things I'm excited about. And just like that, guys, all the stuff for the engine is finally painted. That's done and out of the way. Stuff has to dry though, but we have some stuff we need to do in the meantime anyways. But let's go ahead and take a look at our work. I mean, I love this Detroit Diesel green, or Detroit Diesel Alpine green. I think it came out fantastic. Check that oil pan out. That disgusting oil pan is now just a beautiful thing. Here we are on the front side. I'm just happy with how it came out, guys. I really love this color. I've always loved it when I've seen it. Now, go ahead and put down in the comments what you think of this color, because this is one of my favorite GM colors. Now, our headers are all done. They still need to dry. I ended up doing this off camera, just a little piece we had to finish because that's where the starter holds on to. And then we have all of our other stuff over here. We've got our intake already done, just sitting there drying. All of our thermostat housing, water pump, we're good to go. I haven't shown you guys this yet, but this here is the nice shiny valve cover. I love this, guys. We'll go more into this valve cover, but I'm super excited about it. Big reason I got it though is because I wanted the PCV and the breather hole. Now, everything at least needs a day or so to dry. And I know, guys, I promised a run video. We're gonna get to it. One last thing before we assemble and just hear this thing fire is I wanna create a run stand for this. I know I could just throw it in the truck, but then if it's in the truck, I gotta take it out, and then I gotta do a bunch of stuff because I still have to get all the painting done. So it's really not quite ready to go in, but I have to hear this thing run. Plus, having it on a run stand makes it a lot easier with how the flywheel and everything has to go on, and I'll show you guys all that later. So that's what we're gonna do. But don't worry, it's not gonna be some long, drawn out video where I'm doing a run stand. We're gonna slam this together really, really fast, just weld it up. I got an idea for it, but first, let me show you. I got me a nice new tool. So we're gonna be using a cutoff wheel. I got a ton of scrap metal that I got from, my uncle works at a construction company, and basically all the stuff they throw out, he just kind of, you know, hands off to me. Like you can tell, this is definitely scrap metal. So what we're gonna do is really quickly weld one up, throw some gauges on it, get it all set up like a little makeshift run stand, and then we can throw this on there because I have to take it off the engine stand to actually assemble it. Told you, I have to time it from the flywheel. Old engine stuff. So let's go ahead and slam that together, guys. Let's finally get this done. Well, it's actually the next day, guys. I went in, it was getting kind of late, but I came back out bright and early and got a bunch of work done. And also I had to clean up a little bit, even though, I don't know if you could tell, it does not look like it in here. This place, this shop, this garage, whatever you want to call it, is destroyed. I'm definitely outgrowing this thing so fast. We have a wood shop over here, the truck and miscellaneous parts for it over here, welding, the air compressor, my little fabrication stand I was using, all the other workbench over there. I mean, man, I've got like maybe 10 square inches to work right now, but we're making it happen. Anyways, like I said, I came in bright and early this morning, and got a bunch done. Okay guys, you saw me make this, and what this is the front mount for the engine. The engine actually mounts with one mount in the front, and then it uses the bell housing right here, bolted up to it, and has a side mount on each side, and that's all it really has to mount into the truck. So I went ahead and made this up. I drilled the holes already for it, put a little bit of fiber, rubber isolator here. I could have used the engine mount, but I didn't want to break that out yet, so that'll help protect the paint when we do the run stand. And it's got casters. This thing is on wheels now. Yeah, didn't quite have enough material, but you know what? It's gonna be fine. And if it's not fine, we'll find that out real fast. Now, to finish fabricating the stand, I actually need to know where to mount for the bell housing. And it's really hard to measure that out without it all bolted up, all done. So it's time to get the engine off the engine stand, lift it up in the air, get it all bolted up. I'm actually gonna put the engine right there on the stand and just fabricate it from there, guys. So that means further progress with the engine, so I'm super excited. Let's go ahead and get started. These inline sixes, guys, don't actually have a place to pick it up, like a small block Chevy where you can just put like a mounting plate, so it's kind of actually a little bit difficult. What I'm doing is taking a thermostat housing, running a grade 8 bolt in, then over here on the opposite side, I ran a bolt into the exhaust bolt and kind of balance it out that way. I've done this before. It picks it up really, really nicely. So let's show you here. And then I have this little balancer here. What is this thing called? Load leveler. Now it's definitely not level, but we'll level it out. There it is, and just level it out. Now, just pop this on, and what we need to do is get on the bell housing and the flywheel. And that's gonna take a little bit because the flywheel's for the hydromatic, so we need to seal it up. So we just pop this off, and then we go ahead and put the flywheel and everything else on. Now, like I've talked about before, I covered up the flywheel because this is a sealing surface. We actually have to RTV the flywheel to the crankshaft. And the reason we have to do that is because unlike a modern transmission, automatic transmission, where all the fluid is housed in the torque converter, this thing doesn't have a torque converter. It has what they call a torus. And it actually seals, the torus cover seals to the flywheel, and the fluid actually rotates within the flywheel like that. It's actually pretty cool. I'll show you guys that right now. Now, put on the cover plate, which just houses the starter, and this is what the bell housing actually bolts to. Okay, let's get the flywheel ready, guys. And like I said, it actually works like a torque converter. It's not a torque converter, it's a torus, but what I mean is that it actually houses a lot of fluid. So you see here, there's actually a gasket that goes around here, and you put your torus cover to it. There's an O-ring also, and it keeps all the fluid inside. Now, we're not going to do any of that, but when we bolt it to the crankshaft, we need to make sure we seal it to the crankshaft. So we have our locking plates right here. And it was really cool. I was actually able to find this new old stock. So 2-plate lock, flywheel. So packaged August 1952. That's awesome. So only downside, it's only 2 of them. So I will be reusing one of them. So we have it set up like this, and idea, from what I understand, it just works like a lock washer. Kind of helps keep everything where it needs to. And in the book, you definitely have to, it says put sealant cement, but RTV is what we're gonna use, automatic transmission gasket maker. It actually wants you to put it in between the lock plates because you need to make sure this doesn't leak from here. And we will be putting this on the crankshaft itself also, just to make sure everything is all sealed up. Okay, there we go. We have everything where it needs to. I will clean up, squeeze out when we bolt it up. But what we have to do to this side is dress this up a little bit. So here is the crankshaft sealing surface. So all of that, it actually takes a paper thin gasket. I couldn't find one, so we'll just RTV it, but it also takes an O-ring. So the O-ring goes here. That's gonna be most of the sealing anyways. And then just come through and RTV this whole little area. Also, like I said, we time to the flywheel. Now this is actually supposed to be stamped UC. It's poorly stamped on my flywheel. And I had a hard time seeing it. So I went in and scratched the line. So that right there is the timing mark. Here at this ball is what they considered 5 degrees of advance. And over here, I think it's like really high, but they have another one at this triangle. We're not gonna be using that. So I scratched it and now I have this acrylic paint pen and we're just going to paint a white line. I'm not very good at this apparently. I'm not an artist. There we go. Even straight lines elude me. So now our flywheel is ready. Let's take it over to the crankshaft. Now, one last thing, like I said, we're timing. So this is the timing tab right here. So we need to make sure that this lines up. Now I already have this at top dead center, so I know that when these line up, it should bolt straight in. The upside is you only have 6 positions that this can possibly go in, so it's not too hard to find it. As long as you have the general idea, it's pretty easy to set up. So we know that the tab is right there, which means we should bolt right here. Come on. It's not letting me put it on. I need to put that in first. Let's see. Oh, it needs to go in front of the tab. I don't know what I'm thinking. There it is. There it is. Let's hold that there. And for the flywheel bolts, I got our ARP bolts, but small block Chevys or GMs usually use a 7/16. This is a 1/2 inch. So this is actually a Chrysler flywheel bolt. Let's go ahead and snug this one up. It's about 5 degrees off, which means maybe when we were moving stuff around, the crank got turned just a little bit, which is no big deal, but I know we're about as close as we're gonna get. So let's go ahead and snug all these up. Now again, so I'm using this, the Loctite 445. Now it's a thread sealant, but it should help as a thread locker also. And of course a thread sealant because we'll be putting ATF to it. There we go. All right, I got all the bolts snugged up, but now to keep the flywheel from turning, and I gotta snug this down to 105 foot-pounds. So yeah, we have the, what is this? A ratchet hook to the front of the crank, and I'm just gonna start cranking from here all the way to 105. This should be fun. Where are we at now? 100. That's, yeah, 105. All right, let's try that out. These are already to 60. Yep. That's a pain in the ass. Probably be easier once this is down, but let me try this, because there we go. If we lower it, we use the floor as the to hold that. Let's try that. There it is. The floor for the win. Now the bell housing. Let's try to figure this one out, huh? So the bottom bolts in from this side, top from this side. So we'll start with the top using the original grade 5 bolts. Just new lock washers. Let's see. Should just thread right in right there. Now probably a little paint. Yeah, oh, perfect. Actually went in real nice. There we go. Not bad. I'm always surprised when something goes right. I don't know about you guys. Anytime I'm doing any of, well, a lot of you guys have seen that. It always just goes bad for me. So when it goes right, I truly appreciate it is what I'm saying. Okay, now I just knock in all these bolts, and that's it, guys. We'll go ahead and throw the mounts on here real quick and start getting the run stand put together. Well, I went ahead and jumped ahead, guys. I'm really trying to pound through this stand here just because I want to get on to actually hearing this engine run. But I went ahead and got the mounts on already, so that's what it looks like. So that is how the engine mounts in the frame. So you have our front mount, and then here are 2 back mounts. Now, kind of messed up here. I didn't make the cart big enough. So this is what I've mocked up here. Turns out this is an 1.5 inch lower. So I cut these 1.5 inch lower. And then basically, these aren't welded in, just kind of sitting here. I'm going to run the setup like this. I think that's going to be the best thing. I know it's not quite right with it hanging off here, but I think it'll be fine. I went ahead and cut the side right here. So let's go ahead and get it all welded in and then finally get this stand done so we can finally start assembling the engine. It's finally on the stand. It is ready to be assembled. I am super excited, guys. I went ahead and got the 2 bolts up here. I ran nuts in, so that's secured. Back here though, guys, I just left it. Didn't even bother putting bolts in. It's super heavy. It should hold it down. And if not, I'll probably regret it. That's just kind of how it's going to go. But it's ready to be assembled. I'm super excited. First thing that we have to do though is get this cover on so we can finally seal this up. I know I don't want any debris, even though it's kind of been open. I've been having plastic over it, so I'm not worried about it. But I wanted to show you guys what I was talking about with the timing. So that there is how it's timed. So there's our timing tab, and that would be our mark. And you can tell over here, so this is the #1 cylinder, and both of the lifters are down, which means that the valves are closed. So we know that is top dead center. Lines up perfect with our line, so we are all ready to go there. That's the only reason I hadn't closed it up yet, is I wanted to get it on the stand and match everything to make sure that we are lined up perfectly there. So we know we're at top dead center, and you can see right inside there. I don't know if you can. That is the top of the piston. So here is the lifter cover, and it's nice and chrome. Definitely not stock. This is actually another one of those hot rodder, kind of went in business for himself and made it. So basically, I think he actually said his dad started it. So his dad got this script and kind of designed it. And what I really like about this is the old school, like late 30s, or like, yeah, late 30s to late 40s GMC script. I really like the way that it looks. And basically he went into business, had to get more bolts. Basically he went into business, or his dad did, for himself, started making them and selling them. So his son carried on the business, which is the one that I worked with. Actually, I think the business isn't there anymore. But anyways, long story short, it matches the valve cover. I got it polished. It's aluminum. It's pretty cool. I like it a lot. And there we go. I have our fuel pump block off plate because we're going to an electric fuel pump, and I'll show you that later. And our side cover's on. Now, I did have to slot the holes in the corners, but everything else went otherwise. We still are missing this one here. This one can't be slotted. It's like off by, I'd say, 1/4 inch. So I don't know what I'm gonna do there. I don't need it to seal it off, but it just looks tacky. So maybe I'll like, I don't know, epoxy the head of a bolt or something there. I don't know. But everything's in, and last but not least is our oil filler, which now has paint on it, I just saw. But good thing it's chrome and it doesn't stick to that. We'll deal with that later. So basically this is the typical valve cover hole. This is off like an early small block. And you just take the 1 1/4 grommet. This isn't the grommet I wanted to use. It doesn't fit as well as the one that I had before, but I can't find it. So we'll go with this for now to seal it off, but it should just stick like that. On the inline 6s, the first 3 numbers of the serial number is the displacement. So this is a 302 inline 6. That's exactly what's here. I just put some white paint to outline it. It doesn't have an actual serial number, which means that's a factory replacement block, which is a pretty cool piece of history. Nothing special, but basically they had a bunch of those laying around. When you needed your block swapped out, they would take it and stamp your new serial number in. I guess that never got their serial number, so we have our blank 302. And also, this line here is actually used for the clamp on the distributor to advance and retard timing. You could actually, it has marks, and we'll show you that all later. Now to get on to the fun stuff. Let's get the water pump, the thermostat housing, and the intake and exhaust on. We're almost there, guys. This here is the water pump. Get this all situated. Water pump is in, and now we have the thermostat housing. I just have it finger tight. So this here is the bracket for the AC. So we have that already behind it. That means 2 gaskets and much longer bolts. The only difference here is I went with a military style thermostat housing. So here's the original, as you can see, a lot smaller. It's the same internally, but basically it's fatter here so that it has these flanges. And all these flanges are is just drilled and tapped holes. And I got this so I had an option to use like clamps, or I can use this to hold down heater hoses or whatever, fuel lines that might be running by here, and still has that kind of factory option look. So any of the old military parts that I can use, I'm excited to do so. Now for the thermostat, guys, I'm just gonna run a 180, but I did go ahead and drill a 1/8 hole in it. And that's basically so that the air that's in the head right now, when I fill it up, can vent back out, because I don't want it pressurizing and then the head cracking. Even though I plan to kind of having a on-off valve over there to help let air out, since this doesn't come with any way to just evacuate the air naturally. A good trick that somebody taught me was to drill a 1/8 hole right here, and basically the air will come up through there when it pressurizes. And then we'll just throw our filler neck on, all RTV'd out, and be good to go. Now I don't have any lock washers, so that's why they're yellow. Basically, I'm running grade 8 lock washers. So, you know, extra strength here, guys. It doesn't look right, but you know, it'll be functional, and that's all that actually matters. Plus, who doesn't like a good color contrast? Now I already have all of the studs in and ready to go. I got this super thick gasket. I got this from Clifford, guys. It's a lot better than the 2-piece gasket that comes, and you just slam it right in. It's so much better. I've bought with the 2 pieces before, and let me tell you, they absolutely suck. So we'll just come in here, and all we have to do is lay this there like that. Second one should go on just as easy. Beautiful. And then our intake. Hopefully no clearance issues. How much you want to bet we got clearance issues? Come on. No. There it is. Damn, I knew that was going to happen. Clifford sells this, and they pretty much say you can only really use their exhaust with it. Their headers. But it says you definitely can't use factory. The downside here is this middle one is hitting on both sides. The only option is really to trim it down. I can either trim the intake or the exhaust. Damn. I was kind of curious if that was going to happen, but I had no way of really mocking this up prior. Yeah, that's usually how that goes. Well, guys, I'm gonna have to do the only real thing that I can, and that's just cut the tabs here. I don't have aluminum cutoff wheel, and honestly, I don't want to cut the intake. These are just flanges that aren't really that important or play any kind of role, so let's just knock a little bit off. There we go. Now let's just hope I didn't keep my normal MO and just screw something up. Let's find out. Headers are in, and now we have moment of truth. But truth be told, I actually already fit this up, and bam. So that kind of took care of that problem. But of course, we have more problems. So the issue is these stock clamps, the ones that we painted up earlier, they don't fit. So some areas, like right here, they don't really fit at all. And that's because none of this is stock. These are stock clamps. And also the studs, since they're stock studs, they are not long enough to accommodate the fatter flange, the fatter gasket, and everything. We're basically too thick, okay? So what I came up with was, so Clifford sent washers, because normally they have their headers, and their headers don't have a flange at all. So they actually have washers to solve that. So I can use that in most of the areas. I'll have to kind of trim here because nothing's easy. So I have to do that. But for right here, and I'll show you guys that. For this area where you can see there's a giant gap away from the stud, obviously a washer isn't going to work. Now, this is what I meant by there's not enough studs, so this is perfect, but I mean, there's, yeah, nothing. No threads left. So what I did was I went ahead and cut one of these down. Just hit it with a cutoff wheel, and now we can fit it. Now, once I tighten this up, I actually can start a nut on it so we're solid and ready to go. See, everything I'm doing here can just be solved with a cutoff wheel. So that's gonna be the plan. At least we got it worked out. Mock-ups are for that. But since I can't even, you know, start this tonight because of the stupid crank thing, you know, I need something for that. So we'll take this off, we'll hit it with paint, and now we know the course forward with that. But what we can do is jump down there and take care of that oiling system we started before. Remember when we were drilling into the block and having fun doing that? So let's put together the oiling system. We'll set lash on the valves, and then we'll get you pick it up again tomorrow. Okay guys, now for the stock oiling system, we have to run a tube from the oil gallery that comes up here all the way up into the head. So that goes up there, and I'm starting to think I should have put that in first. But, you know, I never do anything correctly. So you actually take this out. I only had it plugged off for painting. And you kind of have to have this, guys. So this is the stock T. Now this has like an old school compression thread fitting, and then it's in 3/8 MPT. And that just goes right here. And then from there, this goes up to the head. And also it had an option for the T that ran this way. And then they had like a canister filter. And that's what they did, like bypass oil filtering. It got about 20 to 30% of the oil. It wasn't very effective. And then once it went through the oil canister, a line ran all the way here and then just put the oil back into the oil pan from here. Now I already sealed this up and plugged that. That's gonna be a permanent plug since obviously we're running a different type of oiling system. Now to seal this up, I'm just going to, you know, use my favorite thread sealant, which is Loctite 545. I've been using this whole time. I love this stuff. It's basically that red stuff that comes on fittings when you order it from the factory, you know, that the red dried up stuff. Same thing. It's perfect, and we'll thread it into here. There we go. Now from the machine shop, this is actually plugged off. So if you guys aren't familiar with this and you send it out to a machine shop, most of them aren't gonna know either. So just make sure you are aware of this. Now the problem is this particular fitting here is the one that's kind of hard to have. So I'm reusing this from stock, but you see it's got a restriction in it. Similar to some of the oil lines you get modern, and it is an MPT fitting, and then this runs into a compression thread fitting. These fittings are really hard to use. I'm lucky that my whole setup from my 228 is good, so I'm reusing it, but I am starting to realize that this might need to have been put in first. Darn it. Let me see. There we go, and it's in. That worked out really well. Now on to the fun stuff, guys. Let's go ahead and get our oiling system in. That one we modified and drilled into the block and did all of that. All of that to put a modern spin on oil filter. Now I have a bunch of MPT fittings. I'm kind of piecemealing this together because trying to do this for as cheap as possible. AN fittings with like nice bent 90 degrees or 45-degree angles would look a lot better, be a lot more expensive. So this is a 3/8 MPT to a 1/2" MPT adapter. The only reason I have the adapters is because the kits are all 1/2" MPT. Bring you in for a better look, guys. So there are adapters in, and then I just went and got some 45s because the exhaust is going to be right here. So I want to cut it this way to get the oil lines away from the exhaust as best as I can. And of course, slather it in sealant and just run with it. Perfect. And now these are just the actual oil hose barbs. And that's kind of what we're looking at, guys. Now I know it sticks out really far and it's like, where is this gonna go? Basically the filter's hanging out here, but I have a plan for that. Let me show you. So the idea I have in mind is I have our alternator bracket here, which is the bracket that kind of comes with the kit that I got for the AC system. Now I'm using this, I think I showed it before, but this TransAdapt filter relocation kit. And it comes with this. So this is gonna, I think, sit right about here. There's plenty of room in the engine bay right here. And I just cut a piece of angle iron out. I keep using this scrap steel I got, guys. This rusty steel is awesome. I try to, anytime that I can get free steel like this, I use it because it always comes in handy for little things like this. So I cut a little piece, and I think what's gonna happen is I'm gonna bolt it to the bottom of this alternator bracket just like that. And then this oil tubing will go here. And this one should go just about there. Have our oil filter hanging down here, it'll be perfect. And with it bolted there, we can bolt it on and off if we need to. Now, one thing, of course, you know, I did run into a problem already. So back on the 228, I wanted to switch it to 12 volt. And there's a video I have for that. It is not a great video, but I will put a link to it if you're interested. I did a 12 volt conversion on the truck when I first got it. I used one of these very expensive, and I probably wouldn't buy one of these again, power gen alternators. Not that they're not good, they're just way too expensive for what they are. Now, obviously I want to reuse them, but the problem being is it doesn't really fit. And then once I actually get it in there, I lose all adjustability. So, can you even see? There we go. It's hitting back here. I could easily just take away this 45-degree angle. The problem is, as you see here, I'm hanging the header. This is where the exhaust comes out. And even if I kick the exhaust out right away, I'm putting a lot of heat on the oil lines. And that's why I kind of want them to go this way. So I think I might just have to go to a regular alternator. Now all we need to do is drill all the holes for our brackets so we can bolt up our oil and cross that off the list. I went ahead and marked where we needed the holes, and now we'll just hit it with our trusty old school 1930s drill press, which I absolutely love this thing, and just get it ready to go. A little bit of cutting fluid, which, and I'm out. This is good to, oh, there it is. And wait, I just waste so much. Let's try it out. I'm starting to regret having the engine so low. It's starting to be a pain. Anyways, not bad. It's all mocked up. Our tap holes are perfect. The bracket lines up great. I'm really happy with how this works. It's gonna be nice and sturdy. This isn't quite bolted down. All we need to do is trim to fit. So this here is oil out, which is gonna go to here. So we'll just come in and snip that bad boy off. Please don't do it too short. Well, after messing with this for a little bit, I think I have to wait to do the hoses for when I get the alternator in. Because I'm on the alternator bracket, where the actual alignment for the pulley is gonna be will affect. So basically, like you see, it's got a kink here, but if I extend it out, it's got a decent bend to it. So depending on where the alternator is going to be the length of my rubber hose. So I'll go ahead and leave this here. I need to get this painted up anyways, and the alternator comes tomorrow because I never have everything I need, and then we'll get these lines in. But besides just these rubber tubes, we are good to go with this now. It's actually been a couple days, guys. I had to wait for parts and get all kinds of stuff, but I got a ton of work done, so let's go ahead and check it out. And bam, check this out. So the intake and exhaust is in. I'm super excited about that. And it's everything that we already talked about. So I just crushed down the washers and just cranked them down with this nice thick gasket. Worked out really well. Our little clamshells here, even though I trimmed them down, we don't have a ton of thread engagement. So I'm gonna see if I can track down other studs or maybe just get a smaller nut. We'll see. But everything looks really good right now. We're gonna run it as is. And then I got our brackets all painted up. And down here for the oil one is painted. Obviously we have our alternator in. And yeah, I know it is super shiny, not what I actually had envisioned for this, but it was only like 80 bucks. The standard looking one was like 100, so shiny it is. It kind of goes with everything though. But anyways, it's in, and I don't hate the way it looks. It's all lined up, so we're perfect there. Just have to tighten it down for tensioning. I went ahead and got the oil lines in. That was a giant pain in the butt. There was a couple thousand rough drafts. It didn't go well. But that's mainly because like it's really hard to gauge the length because of how hard you have to push to get these on, because it seals once it gets on there. But it's in, and I'm happy with it. Bracket's really sturdy. I went ahead and ran a charging wire for this alternator. I know we most likely aren't going to need the alternator to actually do the run stand or break in the cam, but I wanted to see if this alternator is going to charge anyways. It's a little cheapy from my Amazon, so I want to make sure we're good to go. And we have these heater lines in, guys. So basically this is to heat the intake, and I went ahead and ran it. Yes, they are ugly. I'm not sure if that's the route we're gonna stay, but they're in. And honestly, I may just delete them altogether when it actually gets in the truck. And if we turn this way, starter is in. This is a cool, like mini starter. Here we go. It's a cool little mini starter. I got it from Vintage Auto Garage. It's actually really nice. They send you paperwork showing the testing they did on and everything like that. And it is for the Hydromatic transmission because the flywheel is special for the Hydromatic. I'm really excited to find this. Got that all set up. Our battery cables ran, our battery set up. I went ahead and painted our dipstick just so I could actually see it. It was blending too much to the block. Anyways, I got a ton of stuff done, so I'm super excited. But now let's finally get this crank on. I had to wait forever to get this bolt here. Nowhere around me wanted to sell fine thread 5/8 bolt. You just couldn't find them. Everything on this truck is fine thread. I have no idea what they were doing in the 50s, but almost nothing is coarse thread. Everything is fine thread. It's wild. But let's go ahead and get this on so we can set the lash for the valves, drop some oil in, and finally get this thing running. Let's get started. After some back and forth and a little bit of soul searching, I have gotten it in. It's just had to be perfect. So it is going on, and I think we've lined it up now. I think that is the depth of that screw. Time for the original. Perfect. Now to torque it down, I can't do it. I gotta block up the flywheel, but I did kind of crank on it with the impact. It's on there. I'm not worried about it at all. And once we get it all set up and I can get something for the crank, we'll get it tightened down. But let's go ahead and make sure the belt's gonna fit now. And belt, oh, dang it. Roll away. Belt's in. Finally, guys, it's time to set the valves. I needed the crank pulley on so I could actually, turn over the crank to set the valves. Just setting the valves on this is super, super simple. You simply go through on top dead center, and then you go through on bottom dead center, which is basically, we'll go ahead and set all the valves right now. We'll rotate it 1 revolution, set all the valves again, and that should be done. We'll go ahead and do it 4 times, so that way we're double checking our work, but we'll be good to go. I don't exactly remember which valve I need to do, but there is a little article on oldgmcstrucks.com. I'll go ahead and put a link in the description so you guys can check that out. Now the stock lash for all GMC Inline 6s is going to be 12 on the intake and 20 on the exhaust, but I'm setting the lash per my cam grinder specs. So it is 10 on the intake and 12 on the exhaust. But you're supposed to be setting your lash when it's hot. This is obviously not hot, and I'm not gonna be setting the lash with the engine running. There's a way to do that in the manual, and it's horrific. You get oil everywhere, basically. So what you can do is set the lash a little bit wider. So basically the reason why you wanna set it hot, if you don't already know, is because metal expands. So you're gonna be a little bit off. Now, I can do is set it about 2/1000ths larger of a gap, and that way it'll get us close to in the range for when we're hot. And then we can break it in on that setting and then go ahead and set our valves again once we shut it off. But with it being a little bit loose, I'm not worried about wiping a cam lobe. Definitely too tight to wipe a cam lobe. So we'll go ahead and start. And per our diagram, I'll tell you now, you go number 1, intake and exhaust, number 2, intake, 3 exhaust, 4 intake, and 5 exhaust. And then once you do the 1 revolution, you go 6. Number 6 is intake and exhaust, 5 intake, 4 exhaust, 3 intake, and 2 exhaust. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go about it doing that way. Now, since both of these are loose, because we talked about that being on top dead center, we'll go ahead and set these. I have my lash order set right here, and then I actually have the original tool you're supposed to use. It's actually pretty handy. Otherwise, you need a flathead screwdriver and a 5/8 wrench, but that's basically what that is. That way you can adjust and hold it there. Now, this only goes to 13 on mine, so I have a 1/1000th on top of it. So we'll just kind of set where the lash is, and we are way out. I already knew we were. So we're already loose on our lock nut. What we'll do is we'll go in, get this, come on, get this into the groove. Oh, it's already in there, wow. And kind of set our lash. Just get a nice drag on it. Perfect. And then keep that still and then just tighten it up. That might have been too loose. There we go. And check it again. Perfect little drag on it. Valves are all lashed. I've checked it a dozen times at this point. Went through and made sure everything was tight, made sure everything was exactly lashed the way it was supposed to be, and I was very careful because I do not want to wipe this cam lobe. I can't talk. Basically because I don't have any time. Everything has to go together really well from this point on if I'm ever going to make my wedding deadline. So it's good. It's checked. Now time for some oil. So I'm going to go ahead and use some Lucas Braking oil. This stuff is crazy expensive, but again, save an engine. It's worth it. So we got it. Let's go ahead and throw this in. All the zinc, all the vitamins this engine needs. Now let's get the oil filter on. There we go. Well, my SD card got full, but I did make up a little, tool. I had to sacrifice one, put it on a diet, but it does fit in here. So I've got everything. I have a cheap little oil pressure gauge rigged up here just so I can see if the pressure comes up. Basically, if we get pressure at all, then it's working. Let's circulate it and see what happens. I'm just going to go right in here and start off slow. Why is it making that noise? Figured it out. I have to know what I'm doing first, apparently. All right, let's do this. Oil pressure, 20, 40 pounds, 50 pounds. All right, it's already circled through. The weird thing is it's concentrating all of the oil in one area. How shouldn't it be dispersing it? Well, it's the next day, guys. Again, I had to go into work, but let's go ahead and finish up this. Where were we? We have oil pressure. We have everything together. Oh, I did reach out to some people about the rockers. It turns out you actually have to have them turning over and moving, or the engine does, to get oil up into it. I guess it's got a machined hole behind here, and then it lines up with this little hole here, and then it weeps out and goes down. So what we're gonna do is, I picked up, I don't know, where is it? Here it is, in my giant mess. I picked up like one of those Wizard of Oz kind of Dorothy oil cans, and we are going to just go ahead and oil up everything. I already filled it with some braking oil, and I just wanna make sure we get everything lubricated. That way it's ready to go. And then once it's breaking in, it will start running oil. And we'll go ahead and check it and everything when it happens. But we already saw that we have oil up to the top end, so I'm not worried about it at all. Just want to make sure it doesn't start dry. Now we just need to get the valve cover on. And for this valve cover, what I like to do, because there we go. Oh, basically I like to get RTV over everything is what I'm trying to say. No, what I want to do is I basically only put RTV on one side of the gasket. Get it all lined up nicely. And then you don't RTV this side, which is what I'm trying to say is put RTV on one side of the gasket, put it down, and that way it cements it to the block or the head, and then you can remove the valve cover to lash valves or whatever you need to do without having to replace the gasket every time. It is the quart gasket though, so it will swell over time and eventually have to replace it, but it's a good way to be able to take this on and off and not have to worry about replacing it every time. Last but not least, we need to get the distributor in. I did have the original one all painted up and ready to go, but that turned out it did not work. I had to go back to the one that actually came off the 302, and it turns out there's just different styles I did not know about. So this is a 37 to 52 style, I think is the right one, and this is I'm probably gonna get this wrong, 53 to 60. I'll put the numbers on the screen. I always forget stuff. So we had to go with this basically because, I mean, I should have taken it off to show you, but long story short, I got the Protonics for the inside, and this particular old style doesn't allow it because the shaft is slightly lower. But the reason why I didn't go ahead and paint this one up and make it look pretty was because I decided to not go with this distributor altogether. We are gonna go Hyperspark. Now, I know to do Hyperspark means I have to go Holley Sniper, which is, or at least a Holley style EFI, which is exactly what this motor is going to get. But we can't break it in on that. And I'll go more into that later. I know it's not someone's cup of tea, but I said this is going to be a daily driver engine, cold starts. I'll be taking road trips with it. I definitely wanted something, you know, that could handle all altitudes and weather. Depending on how certain people feel, they definitely don't like EFI. Now, let's go ahead and put a little bit of assembly lube, or a lot, just, you know, make a mess is what I'm saying. And we'll get this started. Now, the cool thing about this, and I'll show you guys in a second, is you can actually advance the timing with accuracy based on this little clamp here. But to get it in, I already made a mark for #1 cylinder, and we need a screwdriver. So this is what I meant by the cool little thing where you can advance and retard the timing based on marks here. So once you mark it where it is and get it clamped down, it's not there yet. So that's 0. If you want to advance it up to 10 degrees, bam. You want to retard it up to 10 degrees, just like that. And that's the way you can make adjustments on the fly if you were, you know, driving in the 50s, going through the mountain ranges or different elevations, and you needed to change your timing. Right there on the fly, guys. So let's make sure it's lined up right there at #1. See, and now you know that's accurate. And see, if you move this with it tightened down, it moves the body. And that will advance and retard your timing. I actually do want to advance it, so we want to go about, let's go 9 degrees. And as you guys have already seen, big and shiny is already sitting here. I'm using a Eldebrock 1403, so it's the 500 CFM version. I probably need a gasket first. Have a gasket. Again, so the 500 CM version. Because it's only 6-cylinder, it definitely doesn't need the 600 CM one, and 500 will be perfect. Plus, it was one that was more affordable than like a Holley 390, which are like $800. And since we are still going sniper, like I talked about, we just need a break-in carb. These studs are so weird. They don't have, like, you don't screw in the stud and then put this down. It comes in from the bottom. Yeah, I hate this adapter. Did I tell you that yet? It's ridiculous. But so the 500 CFM will do just fine for this particular engine. And then again, we'll swap over to the Holley Sniper. Now the Holley Sniper is good up to 200 horsepower, or down to 200 horsepower, I should say. And God willing, this engine at least makes that. Now, stock, this 302 was 160 horsepower, surprisingly. And that's really good for the late 1950s. Now, with all the upgrades and everything we did to it, I'm imagining we'll probably nail around 220. Well, things have escalated, guys. After I got the fan on, battery died, and I just kept jamming through because honestly, this thing just needed to run. But it is officially ready to start. Let's check it out. So here is our radiator mock-up. Our very, very shady, but it works. I got all the hose clamps on. We're ready to go. It shouldn't move too bad, or it'll just eat my new radiator with my luck, but it's gonna work, okay? We've got everything ready to go. So I mocked up a fuel system here, kind of wraps down, comes down past our battery, out to our makeshift fuel tank. I have our clickety-clack here. We should be good to go. Our fuel line had to be taped out, our fuel line. Our oil line for our pressure gauge got taped out of the way so we don't just roast that. I went ahead and hooked up the PVC line, so we're good to go. I have a tack hooked up so we can actually see. So for cam break-in, you want to go, well, I mean, most of you already know, but I think 2,000 RPMs at minimum for 20 minutes and then vary that from 2,000 to 25 is from my understanding. I have a water gauge for this. That's actually hooked up. This here, which you've probably seen earlier in the video, is actually just a stop on and off valve, a ball valve, out to here. And that's so I can burp the head of air so I don't end up immediately cracking my head. And what else do we have? Oh yeah. So all of our electrical is hooked up for the coil. Everything's ready to go. I already have our starter switch right there. And then I went ahead and already added a little bit of water. And when you add water, you want to spill it everywhere so you can't tell if it's leaking. That way it's perfect. All right. Last but not least, guys, I went ahead and fabricated an exhaust system. Now, this exhaust is actually made from the exhaust that was originally in the truck. That's why it's all this rusty pipe and the original muffler. I went ahead and saved it in anticipation that I was going to be doing that. And all I did was just get some cheapy exhaust collectors, weld in an adapter, and then kind of run it this way. You know, we won't look at how bad those welds were goobered on because I had huge gaps and it's really hard to weld to rusty metal. I'm calling this though, and why I did this is the neighbor saver, okay? My neighbors are really cool with all me doing all this stuff. A lot of them just stop by, but if I start going open headers for 20 minutes, there might be a different discussion. So the neighbor saver is definitely gonna help us out. Now let's go ahead and wheel this engine all the way over here to the garage door, crack it a little bit, and finally hear this thing pop off. All right guys, battery's all hooked up, pump is running. As you can hear, we are ready to go. Just gonna come over here and make sure our gauges aren't all over the place. I am already leaking a little bit from where these are, but that's fine. We'll just clean up that water later. Prop that open a little bit. I have my set screw set a little bit. We're good here. Woo-hoo! Is it weird that I'm scared, guys? Let me see if I can get you a better view. There you go. Is it weird that like I'm nervous? Like I got butterflies. Whew, let's hear this thing run. Woo! Woo! Yes! Right off! We got oil pressure! Woo! I'm so excited, guys. There it is, guys. It's going. We're staying kind of warm. There it is, guys, and all my water leaks. Pretty bad. We're running all the way out the door, but we're not staying too hot. And then our oil pressure is pretty good. About 2,000 on the tap. There it is, guys. It fired off as soon as I hit that button. I could not believe it. That was so exciting. I'm literally shaking. I'm just that excited. Whew. But I'm also shaking because halfway through, of course, I turned the camera off because I thought, hey, I don't want it to run for 20 minutes for no reason. This happened. And this here is the nylon oil pressure line. Again, I know I don't normally run this. I wasn't gonna run this in the truck, but I was like, hey, for the run stand, no big deal. It slipped out of the tape, hit the exhaust and melted. Smoke everywhere. We have, as you can see, I don't know if you can tell, oil and water mixed up over here. Thank God I was literally next to the engine. I just pulled the ignition wire, stopped the engine immediately. Oh, I was freaking out, guys. But what ended up happening is I just went ahead and pulled the copper line I was going to use for the truck anyways, and I ran it. In retrospect, should have just done that. And I will never, literally never use that nylon line again, but we ran. It was a full 20 minutes. I started it right back up. I had great oil pressure still, no knocks, no issues, no lifter ticks yet at least. So hopefully we don't wipe a cam lobe. But look at it, guys. I mean, scorching hot, but it's perfect. Temperatures creeped up once you turned it off, but everything looks good. It actually started running a little bit lean, but we got it off in time. I did run it down to idle really quick. It sounded great, no issues. Man, I am super excited. Just take a look at it, guys. The engine is alive after 10 to 15 years. And there you guys have it. After at least 10 to 15 years since that at least short block has ever ran, it ran today. I cannot tell you how excited I am. I still have goosebumps from hearing that thing run. Building it from the ground up and finally hearing it fire off is easily one of the best things. But we definitely need to go through and tighten up that cooling system with the water flying everywhere. And I still need to get my heart checked after seeing the oil fly everywhere from that nylon line. But the engine looks good. Everything looks great. I popped the rockers off. I don't see any issues that I should be looking for like a cam wipeout. From what I can tell, we're in the clear. The powerhouse for the GMC is ready to go. And that means we can finally get back on it, put a little paint on this thing, reassemble, and just get this thing down the road. Again, I just want to say thank you to all those that have been following along, and I appreciate all the support, guys. And remember, if I can do any of this, first engine I have ever built, so can you guys. I'll catch you guys on the next one.